Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the WCW Saturday Night Review Series for the 29th of August 2000, sure, 1992. I wish it was still in the 2000s and WCW Saturday Night still existed under the old school methods, but that's not to be. Very short show, less than half an hour. I think they joined in progress. Bill Watts talks about having to find several people. Basically, talks about losing control of the promotion to a lesser degree, and how people don't want to follow rules. Basically, is the main idea of that. And then we go to the ring, and Jimmy Garvin is here. Jimmy Garvin's still a babyface in the grand scheme of things, although, to be completely honest, kind of falling a little behind in his influence versus where he was a few weeks ago. I'm all the way up to watching in 1993, and I think he's pretty well gone here. The Barbarian is Jimmy Garvin's opponent. Not very good for Mr. Garvin. Barbarian, of course, aligned with Cactus Jack. Garvin, for better or worse, tries arm bars and basic stuff on the Barbarian. Doesn't go well for him in any stretch of the imagination as far as that's concerned. Irish whips by the Barbarian and a short minor comeback by Garvin. Garvin manages to get kicked a couple times and hitting a couple of knees into the spine by the Barbarian. Again, if he can get there from here, this is a wonderful time for the Barbarian to take over because he ends up challenging for the World Championship before the end of the year. Cactus Jack is involved in this process as well, although not at ringside. I don't remember him being at ringside for this particular match. Garvin tries to fight back to his feet, doesn't bode very well for him, but manages to do a little bit of that, fighting back, that is, before getting kicked in the face with what would later be known as the Mafia kick. Jake Roberts and Cactus Jack talk about some various things. Roberts talks about wanting to destroy virtually everybody from Dustin Rhodes, who he says got in his way at the Omni and bumped him in the chest, therefore he needs to get even. Roberts would only be interviewed by Cactus Jack. Cactus eventually seconds Roberts, almost in a manager-style role, although Cactus is still wrestling, so I don't know if it's just a stable of nut jobs or what it was supposed to be at the time. Doesn't make sense to me then. Didn't make sense. It does make sense to me now. Didn't make sense to me then. Basically saying that Robert says he would have to test Ron Simmons, wants to try him. Will eventually eliminate Sting. Also makes inferences that eventually, in order to be the champion, Roberts will have to face Vader, and we see Vader beating Sting as part of that video package. Jake Roberts has really pushed very strongly here the thought that Roberts, in fact, would be a major force is pretty major, although he's gone by the end of October. So, enters in August, gone by October, weird. We see a clip from World Championship Wrestling on TBS from January 21st, 1984. Terry Ellis is the man to face him here. I think that's because they're getting ready for the 20th anniversary edition of the WCW Clash of Champions and the 20th anniversary of them on the Superstation kind of thing, because they started in 72. Paul Heyman talks about studying Steve Austin being one of the best wrestlers of all time as the television champion, and soon he loses the belt within the next couple of weeks here. Might have actually... No, I didn't lose it here, but very close to it. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat is here. He is the man that eventually defeats Steve Austin for the championship, which is kind of cool. Steamboat is a guy who, for better or worse, is always going to give you a good match, even if the booking of said match doesn't make a whole hill of beans of sense, which in WCW is pretty common, actually. I believe Johnny Gunn is the man that is Steamboat's opponent here. Might have been Tom Zink too, though. Anyway, takeovers by Steamboat. Really basic stuff, nothing major. They do show Eric Watts watching along from ringside, and it is Zink and not Gunn. I just got confused because they do look somewhat similar, and the fact is that Gunn debuts at around the same time, within a month or two here. Anyway, side headlock takeover, and things go according to plan there. Steamboat fights out, wrestles out, doesn't get everything he wants on things, but manages to get a backslide and fight back out some more. Really basic moves and a really easy story. Zink, not a heel, but kind of leaning a little heelish, a little more aggressive. Steamboat, having never been a heel in his main career, actually hits an interesting perfect flex style maneuver, getting a pinfall, which is really interesting that he would use a finish from another program. Um, Brad Armstrong basically cuts a promo saying that he may very well have to forfeit the cruiserweight championship, light heavyweight championship. He's got a torn ligament in his knee. Ryan Pillman says that makes him sick, that he's not a fighting champion, and actually slaps him, gets after him, and goes right after it. Pillman obviously eventually going heel. This is the beginning of that, and he does so within a couple of weeks. Enhancement talent for Vader up next, and big surprise here, Vader is victorious. Vader, of course, the former world champion, and you know that's kind of what's there. High shots from Vader. Vader going to town on the enhancement talent pretty aggressively. I would not want to be taking these shots because some of them look pretty brutal. Some of them look in safe spots, but other ones, not so much. Vader with a splash in the corner and a clothesline Harley Race. Vader's manager on the outside. The story was that Race could calm Vader down some. If this is Vader calm, I'd hate to see him hyped up. Anyway, Vader with the choke slam followed by a splash from the second rope on the inside, and not a fun landing there. Vader hits power bomb, and a 1-2-3 is gotten by the Big Man. We go to hype for the upcoming Clash. We hear match about Steve Austin and Steamboat, among other matches. Brad Armstrong, Brian Pillman will take place. Sting, Nikita Koloff, Rick Steiner, Scott Steiner versus Rick Rude, and his team. Van Hammer's in there, and I mean they're running pretty quickly through matches, but a lot of future stuff. The NWA Tag Team Tournament going to be part of that as well. Teddy Long talking about some charity work that he's going to be doing. Ron Simmons talks about wanting to be a fighting champion. Rick Rude comes out and basically says, in no uncertain terms, he should be, as the U.S. champion, the number one contender for the World Championship, and Simmons basically says he's willing to partially agree to that, and we'll take Rude out at the appropriate time. Chris Sullivan and Rick Rude is your close for the show. Rude alongside Medusa. Less involvement from Paul Heyman than previous. Rude hits a beautiful jumping pile driver, which is not a move I remember him using a ton. Not that I haven't seen Rick Rude use pile drivers, but that one almost is reminiscent of a Paul Orndorff style pile driver. Rude then hits the Rude Awakening and sends his adversary home with the loser's share of the money. And Simmons basically says he will, in fact, eventually face Rick Rude. Unfortunately, Rude gets injured before that happens. I always wondered if Rick Rude wasn't fated to be the one to beat Simmons, but we will never know because Rick Rude has unfortunately passed away. We'll be back with more right after this.